Spain isn't just beaches, bullfights, and flamenco dancers. It's a country carved by mountains, drenched in legends, and forever caught between old traditions and global influence. For centuries, this land has been at the crossroads of civilizations, Romans, Moors, Christians, and explorers all leaving their mark. But the real story of Spain is stranger and more dramatic than most people realize. Think about this. A country mostly surrounded by water, yet guarded by mountains so high they kept entire regions isolated for centuries. A place that once ruled the world, only to fall into poverty and civil war. A nation where every corner, Catalonia, Basque Country, Andalusia, feels like a different country altogether. And the question is, how did Spain become what it is today? Before we dive in, drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. Spain's history has shaped far more places than you might think. Spain's geography is destiny, bordered by the Pyrenees to the north and the Mediterranean and Atlantic on nearly all sides. Spain is like a fortress at the edge of Europe. For centuries, those mountains weren't just pretty scenery. They were barriers that shaped identity and culture. At the heart of the country lies the Meseta Central, a massive plateau averaging 600 meters above sea level. Imagine a stone table cutting the country in half, harsh, windswept, and hard to farm. For centuries, this plateau made communication difficult. Regions became isolated, developing their own traditions, dialects, and ways of life. This is why Spain feels like many countries stitched together. The Basque lands clung to their mysterious language. Catalonia built a culture tied to the Mediterranean. Andalusia absorbed centuries of Moorish influence. Geography didn't just shape borders, it shaped who people thought they were. And yet, Spain's mountains weren't enough to keep outsiders away. Because across the Strait of Gibraltar, just 13 kilometers wide, an entirely new chapter was waiting to begin. Long before Spain was Spain, it was home to Iberian tribes, Celtic settlers, and seafaring Phoenicians. These early cultures gave Spain its first taste of complexity. But things escalated when powerful outsiders took notice. The Carthaginians arrived first, using Spain as a base for trade and military power. It was here that Hannibal, yes, the one who marched elephants across the Alps, built his empire before challenging Rome itself. Rome, of course, responded the only way Rome knew how: total conquest. By 19 BC, Hispania was firmly under Roman control. And Rome didn't just leave soldiers, they built roads, aqueducts, theaters, and entire cities. Even today, Spain is filled with Roman ruins: Merida's amphitheater, Segovia's towering aqueduct, Tarragona's seaside Colosseum. But the Roman legacy went deeper. They gave Spain its language base, Latin, which evolved into modern Spanish. They spread Christianity, laying the foundation for centuries of faith and power. Hispania wasn't just a province, it was one of Rome's brightest jewels. But Rome eventually fell, and Spain became the prize everyone wanted. And when the empire collapsed, new powers saw their chance. Quick challenge. If you could time travel to one era, ancient Rome or ancient Spain before the conquest, which would you choose? Drop it below. I'd love to see what side you'd take. In 711 AD, a new force stormed across the Strait of Gibraltar. Muslim armies from North Africa swept into Iberia. And in just a few years, most of Spain became Al-Andalus. For centuries, this wasn't just another conquest. It was a golden age of culture, science, and architecture. Cities like Cordoba became centers of learning, where scholars translated ancient Greek texts and advanced mathematics, medicine, and astronomy. While much of Europe struggled in the so-called Dark Ages, Spain was glowing. The architecture of the time still takes your breath away. The Alhambra in Granada, the Great Mosque of Cordoba, intricate palaces that blended geometric art with flowing calligraphy. And yet, it wasn't all peace. While Muslims, Christians, and Jews often coexisted, tensions always simmered. The idea of reclaiming Spain for Christianity was growing stronger year by year. Because while Al-Andalus was rising, the north of Spain was resisting, and those small Christian kingdoms were about to start a fight that would last more than 7 centuries. Few conflicts in history lasted as long as Spain's Reconquista, a 700-year struggle to reclaim the peninsula from Muslim rule. It began with tiny kingdoms in the north, slowly pushing south. Heroes like El Cid, part warrior, part legend, became symbols of resistance. Cities changed hands, cultures clashed, and entire populations were uprooted. By the late 1400s, the fight reached its climax. Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile, known as the Catholic monarchs, united their kingdoms through marriage. Together, they launched the final push against Granada, the last Muslim stronghold. In 1492, the city surrendered, ending centuries of Islamic rule in Spain. That same year, they made another decision that would change the world forever. They funded Christopher Columbus. If you've ever walked the halls of the Alhambra or dream of seeing it, let me know in the comments. It's one of those places that feels like history breathing around you. But Spain's story wasn't just about reclaiming land. It was about claiming the world. 1492 wasn't just the end of one chapter, it was the start of an empire. Columbus set sail west and stumbled upon the Americas. Suddenly, Spain wasn't just a European kingdom, it was the center of a global empire. For centuries, gold and silver from the New World poured into Spain. Cities like Seville became the beating heart of global trade. Spanish explorers crossed oceans, claiming lands from Mexico to the Philippines. At its height, Spain controlled territories on every continent. This was Spain's golden age of power. Think of names like Hernán Cortés and Francisco Pizarro, who toppled mighty empires in the Americas. Think of the Manila galleons, massive ships carrying silver across the Pacific. For a while, it seemed Spain owned the future. But here's the twist. All that wealth didn't make Spain stronger. In fact, it planted the seeds of decline. Spain's empire looked unstoppable, but cracks were everywhere. Wars with France, England, and the Netherlands drained resources. In 1588, the supposedly invincible Spanish Armada sailed to conquer England and was shockingly destroyed. The myth of Spanish invincibility was gone. Meanwhile, endless wars and reliance on American silver wrecked Spain's economy. Inflation soared, peasants suffered, and the crown kept borrowing money just to survive. Spain had built the first global empire, but it was collapsing under its own weight. And while the empire crumbled abroad, struggles at home only grew worse. The centuries to come would bring revolutions, Napoleonic invasions, and eventually, a brutal civil war. Because Spain's darkest chapter was still ahead. The 20th century tore Spain apart. In the 1930s, political chaos exploded into the Spanish Civil War. On one side, Republicans pushed for democracy and reform. On the other, nationalists led by Francisco Franco fought for authoritarian rule. The war was brutal, dividing families and communities. Cities like Guernica were bombed into ruins, inspiring Picasso's haunting painting. By 1939, Franco's side had won, and Spain fell into dictatorship. For nearly 4 decades, Franco ruled with an iron grip. Spain was isolated from much of the world, its culture censored, its people under strict control. It wasn't until his death in 1975 that Spain began its journey back to democracy. But out of repression came rebirth. In just a few decades, Spain reinvented itself, becoming one of Europe's most dynamic nations. Modern Spain is a country of contrasts. It's a democracy, a member of the EU, and a global tourist magnet. But inside, regional identities remain fierce. Catalonia pushes for independence. The Basque country clings to its unique heritage. Andalusia embraces its Moorish past. Spain's culture is everywhere. Art from Picasso and Dali, architecture from Gaudi, music and dance that pulse with energy. Food alone tells its story. Paella, tapas, jamón ibérico, each region offering something unique. And then there's the land itself. The snowy peaks of the Pyrenees, the sun-soaked beaches of the Costa del Sol, the volcanic landscapes of the Canary Islands. Few countries pack so much natural variety into one space. Which Spanish landmark is on your bucket list? The beaches, the mountains, or the cities? Tell me below. I'd love to see what calls to you most. Because Spain isn't just history. It's alive in its landscapes and traditions. From isolated mountains to global empires, from civil wars to modern democracy, Spain's story is one of constant reinvention. It has been a crossroads of civilizations, a battlefield of faiths, and a stage for empires. And even today, Spain carries that same mix of resilience and diversity. Every region tells a story. Every city holds centuries of memory, and every landmark whispers about the past. So the real question is, where does Spain go next? If you enjoyed this journey through Spain's history and nature, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into world history, and share this video with a friend who loves culture and travel. And tell me in the comments, what country should we explore next?